Hello, everybody. This is my very first ever YouTube live. As you can probably tell, but you have to start somewhere. I just thought I'd give it a try. I'm told this is where it's at. So I have my YouTube channel. I might as well use it. And I was all set up because I was invited to go on to something called Times Radio this morning. I think it was called Times Radio Breakfast. I mean, I don't think I've ever read the Times, or not since I was a child, and I didn't know radio, like there was and I'm thinking Radio Times all the time, but it's not the same thing. So I went and spoke a little bit about living funerals, and the question was, did I think that living funerals were a little bit narcissistic? I mean, I think they're just trying to be controversial and sort of cause a bit of a stir. I've had a real glut of interest recently about living funerals from media outlets wanting to record me. So if you are interested in having a living funeral, please do get in touch with me, because I would love to offer you an opportunity to have that at absolute minimal cost, and you could have the whole thing recorded for you. So that's something that I'm really excited for. But this one was last night. I suddenly had a phone call, and my friend had forwarded my information to somebody, and they came on and said, "Will you come and talk about living funerals?" And so I did, and it was really interesting because I had not foreseen the question. I had the answer, but I didn't foresee the question, which was, about the narcissism. And my response was to say that it's a really British thing. If you think about British culture, English culture, it's always about not showing off, not being big-headed, not being center of attention, not making a fuss. So I could see where that question came from, and I do appreciate that there will be people who won't want to be front and center, which is why I'm really keen to do things in a low-key way, unless you are a big diva and you really need a disco or a drug act, and we're all for that too, if that's who you are. And also, if you are someone who likes to be the center of attention, I'm not sure that really counts as a narcissist. So that was another question. These glasses are the wrong way. So that was interesting. And my point was that really a funeral isn't so much for you as for the people you love. And admittedly, when you're still alive, it's also very much about you, and that's the whole point. But you get to bring all of your people together. You get to see them all together. You get to be in community. That's really the point. If you have a funeral at all, and a lot of people don't have them at all, it's much better to have something, I think. And if you're interested in having it, while you're alive, then it doesn't necessarily mean that you think you're the best thing ever, although I really hope that you do. I wish that we weren't so self-effacing and self-deprecating, because it would be a lot healthier for everyone if we were more confident about our lives and the meaning of our lives and the legacy that we are leaving behind us. So it was interesting that he thought that a living funeral was entirely about a self-interested, narcissistic person. I'm sure he didn't really think that, but that's how he had to sort of play it on this thing. And one of the things I think as well about living funerals is it is an opportunity to invite everyone to gather around you, which gives you a huge amount of support and comfort in the moment. So you would find that people are able to bring you gifts, they're able to make you drinks, they're able to touch you, keep you, hold you, cry with you, laugh with you. And that's really something. That's quite aside from hearing all the lovely things they might have to say about you. And I think it's really fortifying and healing to have that in your life. So I've not really seen living funerals as something which is a performative act, or a way of drawing attention to oneself. And I also don't see anything wrong with it if that is who you are and that's what you need. So that was something that was really interesting. It's all go because on Saturday morning I'm doing Radio Sussex. I'm not someone who listens to radio anymore, so I'm not aware of any of these programs. I didn't realize that they had such a following or such a reach that people still listen to radio the way that they do. But the Radio Sussex wants to speak to me about living funerals as well. And I found her through Nextdoor. The woman who is doing it asked me whether she could use me as an example for an interview that she was going for, that she would want to do a story about what I do. And so I said, well, yeah, that's fine. And I honestly just completely forgot about it. It didn't really cross my mind after that. Didn't hear from her for months and months. And then I had this call just saying, oh, I got the job. Would you like to come and talk about living funerals with me on Saturday morning? So this happened today, then that's on Saturday. And in the meanwhile, I had a thing on here on YouTube on People Are Deep, where there was a video that they took of me in London talking about living funerals. But actually there's two. So there's an hour-long one coming out on the 15th, and there's the one that came out yesterday, which is little shorts about funerals. So I was shown these TikToks. Apparently it's called a reaction video. I didn't know. And so I was just shown all these random funerals from all over the world. And I quite honestly didn't know what I was going to do with that. I didn't know what the videos would be. I didn't know what I was going to say about them. But what's really funny is that I just had so much to say about all of it, and I knew so much about it. It's really, really sad to have that much knowledge about funerals. But it was really fun, and I realized that how passionate I am about them, actually. So there were all these weird and wonderful things from all over the place. So do watch it. It's really fun, and it's out now on People Are Deep channel, and then keep an eye out for the one on the 15th. So that's happening. I've recently been interviewed for a magazine called Discover Brighton, which is a really cool magazine. I've had my eye on it for about 18 months. And I've been building up my brand and building up my contacts and relationship with them. They did an interview with me. The woman who interviewed me really, really would love to have me do that for her, would have loved to have had it for her dad. So she had a really personal interest in what I do. So she's championing my work, which is really, really lovely. I'm encouraging everyone to sign up to my newsletter, because I can then send you a presentation that I did recently for Lifting the Lid Festival of Death and Dying. It's an amazing online international festival, which I do every year, and I moderate for them as well. And they let me do a presentation. I applied and I was invited to talk about my work. That presentation I can send to you, so you'll get much more of a feel of what I do. You can also find on Instagram at Crazy Diamonds Funeral Queen. You can find a little bit of a video on there of a living funeral that I did for someone with dementia. It's really beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful ceremonies or celebrations I've ever done for anyone in all of my career of 11 years, and some beautiful, beautiful ceremonies that I've done. This was one of the most touching and wonderful things. This lady couldn't remember anything, but she kept looking at her children and saying, look at my children, they're just so amazing, I'm so proud of them. And then when she was dancing to Mamma Mia, it was brilliant. Go and have a look on at Crazy Diamonds Funeral Queen on Instagram, or I might try and put it on here actually, or sign up to my newsletter on www.brighton-funerals.com, and you can then just get my newsletters with all the updates and things that are happening. That's happening. I've got people queuing up to film. I've got TV France London. I've got Sunday Morning Live on the BBC. They want to do a film, and there's a talk of a documentary. And there's another thing. Oh yeah, there's this news agency who I've never heard of. They want to work with me and do a film and put it out to all the media outlets. And there's also a journalist who really wants to do an article about my work and put it in the glossies. So you might be thinking, why is she talking about narcissism? She's just talking all the time about herself and her achievements. But the reason I'm sharing it really is because it's a very new idea, and I'm right at the forefront of pioneering it as an idea. But I want people to understand that it really is a thing, and it really is popular. And if it is something that you're wanting to do, get in touch with me for a free discovery call, and I can find out a little bit more about you and about what you want, because it might be that you want something really low key, like a picnic or an afternoon tea or meeting at dad's care home. Maybe you have dementia, maybe you're choosing assisted dying, maybe you're in palliative care and want something in your home. It might not be that you want a really, really big bash, but it might be that you're quite early on in everything and you still feel quite healthy and you want to do something really lively. And that's also great, but the only way that we can find out what would work for you is to have those conversations. So there's that. And I wanted to let you know that there is this opportunity that if you want to have a living celebration, and you don't have to call it a living funeral. I mean, that's just a headline thing, and as you can see, it generates a great deal of interest. But ultimately, they're celebrations of life for people who are still living, with the intention of understanding that you are nearing the end of your life, or you have a life-limiting illness that could take your life at any time. You've had a terminal diagnosis, or you are going, all the other things. So it's really important for me to make sure that if there's a person out there who would really love to do this with me, that you know where I am and you can find me. And also to know that you're not alone in feeling those feelings and wanting those things. At the moment, I'm writing a blog about how to plan a living funeral, because I know that it's a highly emotional thing that you're doing. There's a lot of thinking, a lot of feeling going on. And then there's all the dynamics in your family. So there's working out who is going to be involved, who is going to find it difficult, who might be objecting to your idea, and how to manage those expectations, fears, assumptions, and still make sure that you get something that you want that's really, really helpful for everyone. That's a tricky thing to facilitate, which is what a celebrant would do with you. That's what I would be doing with you. That's my skill. So we would find out who you are, we'd find out what you want, we would make sure that you got that but didn't disturb and distress the people that you love. So the first thing I'm doing as that series of blogs on how to plan is a blog about how to invite people. I found this brilliant book in Waterstones. It was called, oh, what was it called? You Are Invited. You're Invited. This great big picture book, and I love a picture book. And it was full of invitations, high-end people that create invitations for their work, these businesses that do things for corporate events, weddings, all kinds of wonderful things, really inventive, creative things. And I was captivated. There's all typefaces and colors and patterns and shapes, and it's my bag. I loved it. But it made me think how it would be really nice to offer that as part of my service, to create invitations with people. And then I got thinking about writing a blog for people so that they could get a really good understanding of what it looks like. So you're at home thinking, I'd like to do something before I die, but I really have no idea what that would look like. So on the blog, which I haven't published yet, but I'll try and publish that this afternoon, there are going to be lots of images of pretend invitations that I've made for people's celebrations of life. One on the beach, one in a nightclub, one at a garden, I think. And they're all just, you're invited to celebrate my life. It's what it says. It doesn't say, please come to my funeral, and then a picture of a coffin. I think you'd have to have quite a good sense of humor to do that, or just have a bit of a different mentality. So I just wanted people to see what's in my head, because it's so fresh and it's not happening everywhere yet. Although I really do think it might, certainly for a particular demographic of people that don't really believe in the afterlife, or they are, really, really certain that they want assisted dying. Those people who just feel able to do it. They have an emotional awareness and a vocabulary and a life experience which has equipped them for these kinds of experiences. And maybe they're just not traditionalists, or they don't want to waste their money on something that they're not going to enjoy. So there's all kinds of reasons. But I just wanted to say to you, this is what it might look like. For example, Megan, what did I call her? Megan Joy. So I've made up all these pseudonyms and false identities, avatars, so that people can just think their way into how they would want to invite people. I think it's unlikely that you would phone up Auntie Margaret and say, "Oh, hi, Auntie Margaret, I'm dying. I'm gonna have a living funeral." I think and I also think it's unwise. So there's a really delicate approach that's needed. It's a very fine line. It's a nuanced, personal, and unique experience, and we need to make sure that that works for you too. So if you are thinking about having a living funeral, having these conversations ahead of telling people would be really helpful, and there are blogs about that on my website too. So you really need to think about the kind of language you might use, and I have done a podcast about language with Amy Dugmore, who did a lot of research into death language, how we talk about death, euphemism, what's useful, what's helpful in our culture. So that's worth a listen because it will give you a sense of how inflammatory these words can be, how loaded they are. And you can then have a think about what you want to call it. You might want to call it a bash. You might want to call it a living celebration, a celebration of my life. Or you might be the child of the parent, and you might be thinking, they would have they would want this, and then you talk to them about it, and you find ways of talking about how that might serve you and help you in your healing and your grieving process, especially if they're saying to you, "We don't wanna have a funeral." So you might feel like you really want them to have a funeral and they're not going to do that. This might be a way in. And you might make the invitation for your mom. You might make the invitations for your sister, and then you can send them out. And that's something that you can do. Perhaps you're not a big talker. Perhaps you wouldn't want to stand at the front in a traditional funeral and talk about your person, but you might want to give them the gift of this process and creating something artistic for them and sending them out and all of that. It's a really good way of evoking the emotions that you're experiencing so that they're externalized and they're not sitting within you and making you feel poorly. It's giving you an excuse, it's giving you a vehicle for those conversations as well. There are so many ways in which this is not narcissism. This is not about one person. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, why I'm so passionate about my work, and why I'm so passionate about not giving up on funerals as a concept, but reinventing them for current times. Because I know the value of gathering, I know the value of community gathering, and I know the value of our historical traditions and the value of reinventing them. There's no point in holding on to something that no longer serves us, but throwing the baby out with the bathwater is also an unhelpful thing to be doing because you then are left with a void. And we don't know what happens to people who don't have death rituals because everyone has them. As far as we are aware, they always have. To suddenly not do that in a society seems quite strange, to be honest. My coffee is so cold. I'm gonna pretend it's iced. Um, I didn't sleep at all last night because I think I was a little bit overexcited because I've worked really, really hard on this project, on pioneering this new way. And that takes a lot of energy, a lot of thought, a lot of pivoting, changing, testing, experimenting. And I think for the best part of 18 months, I've been focused on understanding what people need and trying to meet a need rather than not listening or refusing to hear, which is a little different, and then insisting on giving people what I've always given them. And it's really tempting to do that when you've spent a lifetime doing something that you really love and you really believe in. But if people no longer want that gift, there's no point. You can't just keep giving people books if they don't read. So I found that really quite an exhausting process. So to suddenly receive all this interest in my work has been hugely rewarding and very exciting. But when you're suddenly faced with the night before, will you come on this radio program that you've never heard of and talk about your work? And I didn't have any time to read the article that was actually in the Times, and I felt, to be honest, a bit unwilling to buy a copy. I didn't really know at all what was going to happen. So partly I was lying awake thinking about that, and then thinking I was so pleased with the YouTube thing that came out. And it made me think that one of my strengths is to talk to camera and share in this way. I find it an easy thing to do. It's a good medium for me. And I know my partner's been talking to me for years actually about developing my YouTube community, because it's absolutely where it's at. And I've been a bit reluctant, mainly because I didn't really know who I was in the marketplace. I didn't know what the funeral industry was anymore, or what my work was for me anymore. So I had a bit of a crisis of identity, and not really knowing what my path was, why I was doing what I was doing, and who I was anymore, because I had so many changes, like all of you, with COVID-19 and moving house, relocating, and so many different things changed, and then society changed, and demand changed, and there was an economic crisis, there was funeral poverty. And so when one takes one's role very seriously and a little bit inhabits it perhaps a little bit too much, finding out who you are can be quite tricky. Really important, vital work if you're running a business and creating a service. But now I feel that I know who I am and what I'm doing and why. I feel able to share with you. And also, I've seen myself doing stuff on camera. I think I'm not too bad at it. And I do find I love to write, but nowadays, if you write for a blog, you have to do it for search engines and robots. So I think I need to start a Substack so that I can write from my heart in a really genuine way, because really that authenticity is what I value. That emotional honesty is what I value. So I will be doing that as well, but I think it's a lot easier and a bit less time consuming in the end to come on here and just speak with you, because if you wanted to work with me, you are going to want to meet me in person. You're going to want to hear my voice. You're going to want to understand my motivations, my experience, my history, and you're going to want to know whether you feel a connection. And really, I don't think there's any better way than trying to connect as in person as we can. If you're in Brighton and you want to meet up for a coffee, I'd really happily do that. And obviously, I can always Zoom with you. But you might be feeling really poorly and unable to pick up the phone, which I also understand. You can book on my calendar, on Calendly on my website under contact, I think, and that will take you through. If you subscribe to my newsletter, I can send you freebie funeral ideas. I can send you a newsletter every week, which is, again, it's video content. It's just me talking a little bit, like maybe a minute, and then a little bit of associated text. And it could be anything. The last one was about my Christmas tree. It's about these baubles. This one I found in my mum's desk, and this is my mum's desk here, along with these funny little creatures. So she has relatives in Sweden who emigrated there. And I did that Marie Kondo thing, that life laundry thing, the joy of tidying. And I went through all of my stuff. And I'd had multiple bereavements. I'd inherited lots of things. I didn't really have space for them, and I needed to know what I had and where I needed to get rid of some things, or at least know what they were and what I was going to do. And we found there's a lot more. I don't have them, or I do have them handy actually. So my blog was about Christmas tree decorations and how for me, every year I buy something and it reminds me of a year in my life or someone who I love. So these are these really funny little, I'm calling it Mum's Weird Shit, because we went through and we found these weird little creatures that, like, there's her. I mean, she's quite cool. I like her. But these things are just creepy, aren't they? They're horrible. But Mrinal said to me, Mrinal's my partner, you can think of him as Min because it's quite a difficult name. There's 3 of them, I think. This one has a guitar. This one's wearing a funny outfit. They're quite creepy. They've got weird pink cheeks and lipstick. But Manel said to me, "You have to keep them because they're your mum's and they're funny and they have a story, so they remain." I've yet to decide where they're going to go because they're not going on this tree, which is full of glass, sophisticated chic baubles, and also there's some glass baubles that I found in this desk that I inherited from her. This one you can't really see; it's really, really fine blown green glass. On this tree, there are angels that my Auntie Joan gave to me every single year without fail in memory of my mum. I'm going to put these two away, but they're little Swedish folk people. They are, maybe we should put them up here with the reindeer. When I bring out all my, this has got a funny little bubbly head, which is super cute. When I bring out all my decorations, I'm remembering my mum. I'm remembering my Auntie Joan and her kindness to me. And there is a white ceramic feather at the very top. I bought one for me and one for my sister's two daughters, my nieces, who one lives in Cardiff, one lives in Aberdeen. We're quite close. And I bought this little ceramic feather because, well, I'll get it for you and show it to you. Because my sister believed that the thing about white feathers, that if you find a white feather and it's an angel, I can't get it down, it's far too high up and I'm tied into everything with this. So she believed that angels were looking after us, and every time we saw a white feather, it would be a kind of reminder that she was looking out for us and things like that. It's quite a common belief, and she believed it, and that was important. So we've all got one for our trees. And every year I'll get a new one. Last year I bought a rhinoceros with a glittery saddle. I have no idea what possessed me. It must have been the sale. I don't remember buying him. And he is up and I really quite like him. And that's marking this year, which is really exciting. The first Christmas in this really nice flat. We're starting to settle. That feels really positive. So I did a little bit of a newsletter about that. So that's the kind of thing that you could have in your inbox. I found people were really comforted by it because so many people find Christmas a bit unbearable because there's so many people missing. There's no one, there's roast dinners, there's someone missing at the table, but also you're not having your mum's roast potatoes or whatever her favorite curry recipe. And we miss our people at Christmas because that's when we would quite often meet up with them. So I found that people were very grateful for that newsletter, and I was surprised because it's just a little personal thing that I happen to do every year, and it's my favorite thing to do at Christmas. So I would love it if you would sign up to my newsletter. I set myself a little goal to see how many people I could bring into my community, because I really love the idea of having a community of people with whom I can have proper conversations and build proper relationships so that over time we have a trust between us. And then if and when the time comes and you want to do something like this for yourself or someone you love, you know where to come, and you know that you trust the process and you trust me, you trust the idea of it, and you've got all of the tools at hand for how to approach those conversations. And you can start them now. You don't have to be dying. You don't have to be imminently at death's door. Do you think it's quite a good idea to do these things when you're still relatively energetic, if you can? And maybe it's a nice thing to think, if and when I know that I'm dying, because you might have a sudden death, but we're all going to die. So if you think to yourself, what would I like? Do I want to have a funeral, traditional funeral, horses, plumes, Victoriana? Do I want something a bit less formal, but also still traditional burial? Do I want a cremation? Or do I want a living funeral? Because if you sat there thinking, I don't want any of those things, but I don't want to do nothing. I don't want to just leave this earth without leaving a legacy, without having some kind of meaning to my life. then it might be that this is for you, that you think to yourself that that really sounds right for me. And I think if you're in my community and we're having these conversations over a period of time, that's a really helpful thing to do. I'll leave it there for now because, as we have discussed, this is my first one, and I did do this radio thing first thing this morning without warning, and I've got another one on the Saturday. So I'm trying not to overdo it, but I did think it would be quite a good thing to have a little practice with the lives and see what people think. I'm assuming I can upload it as a record, as a recording, and then you can visit it and see what you think. I will try and do this again. Presumably evenings are the best time, but you never know anymore. Follow me on Instagram at Crazy Diamonds Funeral Queen. Really, my business in my heart is called Crazy Diamonds. So look out for that. You'll find Crazy Diamonds Funeral Queen here and there. It's my domain name is Brighton-Funerals. So if you look on the website, you'll see the domain there. You'll see in Google it comes up as Brighton-Funerals. But I really prefer to call my business Crazy Diamonds Funerals because I had so many people come to me for funerals who had the Pink Floyd Shine On You Crazy Diamond piece of music for their funerals. And they were crazy diamonds. Generally speaking, I get the crazy diamond. And I just feel that that's really where my heart is. I imagine that quite a lot of you are also crazy diamonds one way or another, because like attracts like. So look for me on there at Crazy Diamonds Funeral. Like and subscribe to this if you can. I don't know. Can you do that with a live thing? I guess so. Well, you can, can't you? You can like and subscribe to the channel. The channel at the moment is opening ceremony because it's really linked to my blog. I might reconfigure that, but for now, that's what I have. So I'm Jess May. I'm a celebrant. I've been a celebrant now for 11 years and just pivoting into this new arena as really the UK's first leading specialist in it, which is really exciting for me, really exciting for you, I hope. So follow me on Instagram, follow me on here, subscribe to my newsletter. You can also find me on Facebook because Instagram automatically posts across to Facebook. So you can contact me through there. I'm on LinkedIn and I'm also on TikTok in a kind of mediocre way, low-key way, but I am on there. Do let me know your thoughts about living funerals and anything that you think you might like for yourself. And do listen to some of my podcast guests. That's about ceremony in general. It's not only about funerals, but there's a lot of funeral content. So if you are fascinated by funerals in general or ceremony at all, that's for you. There's some brilliant guests on there. I've even got someone coming on next year who is, she married the River Avon for environmental reasons. So she and her celebrant are going to come on and speak. I have people called the Dead Pet Girls. They are people that are really interested in the digital memorialization of pets, and that's fascinating. I've got someone coming over next year who is a pagan who's going to come and talk about what's it called? I can't remember the name of it, but you know Halloween, but the pagan version, Samhain. She's going to come and talk about that around October. There's all kinds of wonderful things, stuff about the environment and planting roses, making seed balls out of the ashes of your people, just a whole range of stuff about weddings, everything about life event and ceremony. And I love it. I really love it. I'd love more people to subscribe to it and listen to it. So do join into it if you can. I'm sorry if I seem a bit flat today, but I had absolutely no sleep at all. And the water is being turned off today, so it's going to be really cold. I think we'll all be quite dehydrated by the end of the day. It would be lovely to have people join me next time because I do tend to find that I liven up when I have people to bounce off. So join me in it and support me in my journey. That would be brilliant. and I will hopefully meet some of you sometime. Do get in touch with me. You can always just drop me an email at jess@brighton-funerals.com. And that's that for now. I will let you know and update you as all these different media things come out. I'll come on Saturday morning when I've done my live appearance at Radio Sussex in Brighton, and I will let you know when the next YouTube stuff is up. That's a full length, hour-long exposition of living funerals, which is really good. So that's coming too. And I just will keep telling you, and then I will send you stuff on my newsletter with my blogs and all the other stuff I described. Take care. I hope you have a Christmas that is what you need. I don't tend to wish people happy Christmas anymore because so many people are bereaved and it feels a little bit insulting or just very difficult to achieve. So I hope that you get what you need this Christmas, but I'll come on before then anyway. And I hope to meet you all soon. Ciao.